I think the biggest mistake we all make is thinking we can do it all, and we can't.
Hello, I'm Megan,
I'm Colin,
and this is
Pet Sitter Confessional,
an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
brought to you by Time to Pet and our Patreon supporters. In order to thrive in the pet sitting industry, do you have to hire? The answer is no. Today, Scott Black, owner of Personal Touch Pet Sitting, reflects on his 17 years in the industry. He shares why he's decided to remain solo after all that time. He also shares what it means to have excellent customer service and why personal relationships will help your business thrive. Let's get started.
Okay, well, I am Scott Black from Kingwood, Texas, the business owner of Personal Touch Pet Sitting. We incorporated in 2005, and proud to say that I am the 2010 Pet Sitter of the Year through Pet Sitters International, and a certified professional pet sitter as well. Trained in pet first aid and CPR, and kind of chief cook and bottle washer, do it all. I'm a solo sitter, so I do not have staff. So customer service is pretty much always my main focus, because if something bad happens, it's all on me.
I have a saying that we throw around a lot of, it's not my fault, but it is my problem. A lot of times when we run our businesses, and we have to be the ones that step up to take over.
Well, it's funny. For a very short period of time, as my business was growing, I was on the fence about bringing on helpers. And was it, in the industry, employees or ICs?
Yeah.
I knew some people that were doing this, so I opted for the IC route just to kind of keep things a little simple. But this was years ago, and again, the whole IC thing is taboo. But I realized that it was just easier to do it myself. When you, just because you had people that wanted to work didn't mean they were willing to work. So with ICs, you can't control that. So I just said, you know what, I'm done. I went back to a solo module and in 2016, and I haven't looked back. And you know what? I go to bed. I sleep better at night. I don't worry if someone made a mistake. And knock wood, I don't have any complaints. New clients, and I stole this from another pet sitter. I have to give Cynthia Loomis Johnson a shout out for this. But when a new client gets home from their trip, I always say, compliments or complaints, we love to hear both.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something we can do better the next time. And, so things like that, like you guys know, if you make a mistake, you own it. If an employee makes a mistake, as the business owner, you still have to own it. So I just cut out the middleman, so to speak. But I enjoy being a one-man band, to be quite honest. I really do.
And that kind of flies in the face of a lot of things that we hear in business of grow, scale, more reach, more clients, more customers, bigger company. Have you had to battle that urge at all? And how do you keep everything kind of in perspective for you?
Hey, every day when I have to say no to a potential new client or an existing client because I'm booked and know what my limitations are, I think about that. I go, do I want to go down that road? Do I need to think about? I would go the employee route if I ever wanted help again. I would go the employee route for sure, knowing what I know now from so many other veteran sitters and amazing business owners in our industry that I've been fortunate enough to meet and talk to, and even kind of be mentored by some. But then I kind of take a deep breath, again, assess the situation and say, you know what? I network with other professional pet sitters in my community, and it's a PSI registered network. So in order to be part of our network, we all have to have similar credentials. Our rates are all different and all over the map, because we don't price fix. But by having that network, if you were to call me and I'd say, oh, Colin, I'm really sorry, but I am so booked for Labor Day weekend, but here's the name of 3 other sitters. One of them is my personal pet sitter. I can't guarantee their availability, but this would be an excellent opportunity for Sally, to take care of your guys, because God forbid something happens to me on one of your trips, she would be a great backup to call. Or, so that's, again, customer service. You talk about customer service. I'm bringing it back. Having created this PSI registered network is an amazing customer service to existing clients. And when people are outside of your service area, I know I kind of deferred from your original question, but to me, customer service, if I can't help you, I at least would like to be able to say, I'm sorry, you don't reside within my service area, but here's the name of 2 sitters that service, like Kingwood, where I live. Kingwood is pretty big, and I don't cover all of Kingwood. So I only go so far, and anything past that, there's 2 sitters in our network that I can refer. Now, again, I can't guarantee their availability, but at least I'm not saying to you, sorry, you're out of my service area, bye. I mean, yesterday, perfect example. Yesterday, I got a thing through my website, contact this sitter or whatever, an email, and she was looking for a service I couldn't provide, overnight service with a senior pet that needs medication. I don't offer overnights. None of the sitters in our service, in my network, offer overnights. I tried to email her twice. The email was returned to me, so she must have some heavy-duty spam blockers or something, because it probably didn't recognize my domain, or email thing. And thank God she had a phone number. I called her and left her a voicemail. I said, I've tried to email you twice, but it keeps being returned to me. Unfortunately, I don't offer that thing. I said, there are other sitters in Kingwood that may, but I sent her to a couple, like the NAPS locator and the PSI locator. And I said, you may even want to check with your vet to see if they have a vet tech that might be willing to, but I took the time to call her back, because in this industry, people worry, if I say no, I'm going to get a bad review. Or if I do this, I'm going to get this. To me, it just made sense. If I couldn't get a hold of her by email, it took me another minute and a half to call her and leave a voicemail. And, that may come full circle at some point, where she may know someone that says, hey, this guy helped me out. But I hate to say it, our industry as a whole, because of technology, I think we've gotten away from, I'm going to say it, the personal touch of just taking an extra minute or two to return an email, to return a voicemail, just saying, I'm sorry, you're out of my service area. Unfortunately, I'm booked for that weekend. Or, I would love to be able to take care of your dog in the future, but I'm not available. It doesn't take that long, because you're still establishing a relationship with those people. And, sadly, you've been on some of the chats and the forums and when people are out of my service area, I don't even return the call or the email. It's a waste of time. Well, it's not a waste of time, in my opinion, again.
Well, yeah, because you said maybe that might come back around, because it's building a reputation about your company, about who you are and the values that you have as a person, right? When people reach out to us, we've I went to a community event, and it was for corgis. There was a local corgi association put on a big corgi event.
Oh my God.
It was adorable, right? And
corgi butts forever.
It was just days and days of corgi butts. Yeah. But we were invited to come out and just take part, and we just kind of got to talk with people and tell them, see how everybody was doing. And people would ask for our card and stuff, and I'd ask, okay, well, where are you located? And some of these people had driven from like 5 hours away, and there was no way that I could. I'm not doing that.
Right.
So it took no effort for me to say, if when you need a pet sitter, call me, and I can help you.
Yep.
With some good questions to ask. And what is that? It took me 13 seconds to say that.
Do you know that anytime I do an event in my folder that has my credentials and this and that, I have the list of email addresses and phone numbers for the sitters in our network. Yeah. That when someone comes and says, "Oh, well, where do you live?" I live in Atascocita, or I live in Humble. Oh, I don't service that part of town, but here's someone here. Here's your phone. Take a picture. Again, if I can't help you, maybe someone else can. It's that simple.
And that's where that customer service comes back in. Of we have this internal fear of saying no to people, but just saying it's the no comma but, right? We continue the conversation. We continue that of going, I can't, but let me help you find someone who can.
All right. So speaking of saying no, you probably approved it, but you can edit this out. But did you see the little TikTok thing I put on the?
I did. That was so funny.
It is so liberating. Right? It's okay. And again, this is taboo. Another thing in our industry, people are so afraid to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no. It is okay. You talk about we were talking about with the dog that you had to do 6 visits with to even get comfortable enough to go in and if there's something that you're not comfortable doing. I know sitters that are comfortable doing off-leash pack walks. Yeah. Not me. I know people that just want to let their dog go out the front yard off leash and potty and come back in. Not me. The safety and liability are my top 2 priorities. My safety, the pet's safety. I love when people say, well, will you walk our dog while we're on vacation? Well, do you walk your dog when you're home? No, he's a little bit reactive and he pulls. Well, okay, that's a red flag. Well, it might be best if we keep, Max in the yard, I would hate to have to call you and say, Max bit someone on a bicycle or another dog or pulled me down and I'm in the ER and you need to call your emergency contact to come and take care of Max. Or, I don't think people really understand our side of it, and they think we're being difficult, but they need to understand that the policies we have in place protect them too.
Well, that is part of that customer service of guiding people through what you can and cannot offer. Right? If you go into a Ford dealer and you're like, show me all your Chevys, they're like, out the door. Go that way, right there. Or they can show you, well, I know you're interested in that, but let me show you what we can offer.
Right.
And see if that still fits your needs. It's almost being, you can still feel bad about it, but it's presenting yourself in an unapologetic manner for what your policies are.
Well, and again, that is why my screening process, that I try to make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed during that phone call.
Well, so walk us through that phone call, Scott. Somebody calls you. How do you take that person from potential client to moving on to the next steps? And how do you gauge what that person is? Because that's gauging whether to move somebody on or not is an art form, right? And so I was curious how you work that.
Well, I want to say part of I want to say the success of my business before we even get into the screening is years ago, before I had any type of a career in business or pet sitting or, I wanted to be an actor. And I studied in New York and got into some really fine schools and dance schools. And sadly, I was just another face in the crowd, but that's okay. I have no regrets. But the one thing I did learn is you never overact. Less is more. And through my entire life, I have used that. Keep things simple. And I do that in my business. My services are this. My rates are this. I know, again, what works for me may not work for somebody else. What works for somebody else may not work for me. I don't offer all different packages, and my 30-minute visit is 30 minutes, whether it's a midday walk, a drop-in visit, a pet sitting visit, it's 30 minutes, boom, same price. So when people say, well, I just need you come in for 15 minutes. Well, I can do that, but I think your pet would benefit for another 15 minutes because I'm going to charge you the same amount of money, whether I'm there for 15 minutes or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So understand that. But again, my process, if you or Megan were to call me or leave a voicemail, my first, so here's part of my screening process too. And I know my outgoing message on my business line, I do have a separate business line, a digital voice line, because I don't run my business through my cell phone, first of all. When you're paying me to be at your house with your bunnies, your kitties, your hamsters, your dog, your cat, whatever, I'm not on the phone rubbing your dog's belly, talking to the Smiths that we've been playing phone tag for 2 days and trying to line up a meet and greet. You're not paying me to get my next customer. So I don't do that, okay? So my outgoing message, thank you for calling, blah, 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 blah. If you're calling about services and availability, please leave your name, address, phone number, and dates of service required. This way, when I get your message, and most people say, well, I'm looking for a pet sitter. My name is da-da-da-da. Again, they didn't follow my instructions. Like, is this someone that I want to work with? First of all. Second, if they can tell me where they live, I can find out if they reside within my service area. Because if not, I know I'm going to call, hi, Mrs. Smith, it's Scott. I got your message. Unfortunately, I don't service that part of Kingwood. Here is the name of 2 sitters that do. I hope they can help you. I'm sorry, but my service area is not as big as it used to be, whatever, Again, offering service, right?
Yeah, well, a solution, right? And coming prepared and not just picking up the phone and randomly calling them back. You have answers for them when they pick up. Yeah.
Which is why I do that. But most people just, and I guess we post-COVID or still COVID, whatever, everybody's gotten so entitled. There's 2 words I don't like in our industry: need and want. I need a pet sitter. Well, I need $1 million too, but that's not going to happen. Or I want a lot of things too. I mean, and I guess maybe I take it too personally, but I'm like, my goodness. And then, these are always potential new clients. My established clients, hey, Scott, can you check your availability? Sure, I can, but so anyway, when we get back to that, I return the call. If I get an email inquiry, let me kind of, I still want to say, hey, is there a good time that we can talk? I said, I would prefer to discuss the opportunity of providing care for your pets. If you can, please send me your number and the best time to reach out to you. And I want to talk to people. I don't like to do anything through email. The written word could be misconstrued. No, it can. If I'm having a bad day or someone else is having a bad day, they might read that and go, well, that was rude, when it really wasn't meant to be. So once I can make that phone contact, I always ask, may I ask how you got my name? I found you on Nextdoor. I found you. My vet referred you. My groomer referred you. The store where we buy our dog food referred you. You sit for my neighbor next door. Oh, okay, I know. Da, 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 da. Great. I'm going to say, next question. How do your pets do with men? And, sometimes there's some silence. And I say, look, I asked this for a reason. I said, you were referred to me, but, I'm a one-man band. I do it all. And I have a house full of rescue dogs, and some of them were a little uncertain of me. And some dogs just don't do well with men. So I would not want to stress your dog out while you were on your trip. I said, now if we have some time to work, prior to your trip, like you did, I said I would be more than happy to come and do some drop-in visits and go for a walk or whatever to make sure we were a good fit. I said, but if you think there would be a problem with him or her, that again, I'm part of a professional pet sitting network, and I would be more than happy to. I kind of ask certain questions up front, because if there's a deal breaker there, we could end it. You know what I mean? Versus going on for 30 minutes and then getting to a meet and greet with a dog that's going to be giving me the side eye or, the Elvis lip curl, where I'm not, you don't want to go there and stress an animal out for 30 minutes 3 times a day. That's combat pay. I call it combat pay. I don't want to work for that. So, that's the question. I always want to make sure they live in my service area, first of all. And then it's just kind of like, well, your voicemail said that you had 2 dogs and a cat. Do any of them require special medical attention or dietary needs, that it might be difficult to administer medication, or, just what's their routine? Do you have a doggy door? Do your dogs go for walks? Will your cat come out from under the bed? Like, I just kind of, what is their day like? I want to find out what red flags might start waving for me. That is this a client I want to take on? Or, are they, driven by treats or by toys, or I just finished a job yesterday with a mini doodle that I would spend 20 minutes out of a 30-minute visit out in the yard with a chuck-it. This dog was so focused on the ball. I'm like, he definitely took the lab gene there in that mutt mix of the poodle in the lab. But, I have a house full of hounds. Okay. I've got a senior golden on meds. I've got a blind deaf dog. I've got another 10-year-old hound mix and little Lola. I've got cats, geriatric cats. So I think about my house, and like, for anybody coming into my house, would they be able to do these things in a standard 30-minute visit? Mm-hmm. Fortunately, my pet sitter can. Yeah. And she's a PSI member, and you actually met her in New Braunfels. But I just try to think about if I was interviewing a pet sitter for my crew, I kind of flip it. And sadly, in our industry, again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but you see it all the time and hear it all the time. Pet sitters complain so much about their clients that put yourself in the customer's spot. You're going to want the best for your pets too, and for your house and whatever services you offer. So if you want that, why shouldn't you be able to offer that to your clients? And when they ask, don't think they're taking advantage of you. You know what I mean? Like, don't complain about it, because you probably wouldn't think twice about asking them to do the same thing.
Well, and that sign, those are signs of improperly placed and managed expectations, and going,
Yes.
I feel like people are asking me all of these things, or I arrive at the visit, or I arrive at the meet and greet, and it's nothing like I expected. I think that's a good opportunity to stop and reflect and go, what steps were taken before I got here? Did I ask appropriate questions? Maybe they've decided I don't want to do this on the phone. I want to do a digital form. That's fine. Do you have the appropriate questions that will help you screen before you get in front of that person? Because I know I hear people say a lot of times, I don't have time to be on the phone. Well, personally, I don't have time to be at a meet and greet. That's a waste of my time.
Exactly. And that's why I would rather take the 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. And again, this is not an ego thing or a chip on my shoulder, but my business, grows through word of mouth. Okay. Most of my new clients are referrals. Okay. I do very limited marketing. So when someone calls me or emails me, they already feel like they know me a little bit, because, oh, my neighbor, Sally told me all about you, and I've seen you out there with their dogs, walking them or playing or swimming them, or, whatever, or, so they know me. Actually, the meet and greet, I have a meet and greet on Saturday. This is the third house on the same street that I'll be taking on, because neighbors have seen me with other neighbors' pets. But, it's, to me, I don't want to go to a meet and greet that's going to blow up in my face. Now, again, not to sound egotistical, but I don't even go to a meet and greet till I've got dates on the calendar and I'm about 95% sure I've got the job. And I tell people, so when I come, this is what I'm going to need from you. I'm going to need 2 keys. I have some paperwork we're going to need to fill out. And, I don't rush through this. So we need to allot for the time. And again, it's a psychological thing, because the longer it takes for me to get through this, if there's dogs there, they can hear me, they can see me, they can smell me. They can see that I'm not going to harm their mom or dad. I've had situations where dogs have gotten between me and their pet parent. And I'm like, this might not be good. But of course, when you're the only one there, they're like, oh, hello, rub my belly, but you know what I mean? It's so again, I try to make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed before I even set that meet and greet. And, sometimes people will be like, well, I'll have, when a woman says, I'll need to talk to my husband, I know I'm never going to hear back from them again. No, and I'm not saying that because it's a woman. It's just that the husband's like, I'm not paying that kind of money. And then when they go, I don't want a stranger in my house. Well, why are you calling an in-home pet sitter?
Right.
I don't board in my home. No. So again, there's just lots of things that can come up that you can go red flag, red flag, red flag. Or, I don't have a problem saying, well, based on our conversation, I kind of get the feeling you're not overly comfortable with me. And I respect that. If you'd like to discuss it with your husband, or, if you're interviewing, I ask, are you interviewing other services? Because, I tell people, I said, look, I don't put dates on my calendar until I have a meet and greet scheduled. So if you're interviewing and you would like to, set up a meet and greet, but a lot of times when I say, well, I'll need keys and this and that, well, I'm not ready. I don't know if we're ready to go there yet. I'm like, well, okay, well, you know what? I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. Like, I'll just cut it short right there. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. You've got my number. If things don't work out with other services, please let me know. Hopefully I'll still have availability for the time you need.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Susan from the Pet Gal has this to say.
Time to Pet has helped us grow exponentially. We believe the platform's features make us by far more professional than other companies who use conventional dashboards. They are the software gurus constantly developing and improving the platform based on user feedback. This decision was a good one.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. How do you not take that personally, Scott? Because I know early on when we would do that and we would hear they were talking to other people or they were still deciding or stuff, it hurt us, about that they didn't like us, or we did take that kind of as rejection. So
again, going back to being an actor in rejection, I hate to say it, like I think it made me tough. Like, I mean, no one wants to not be number one. I mean, come on, but you know what? I hate to say it. I think people just aren't. I don't think people know enough. People that have never used a professional pet sitter before, I don't think they understand what it is we do.
Yeah.
And I think that having a stranger come into your home is scary. I get it. But being a professional pet care provider and a professional pet care business owner, hey, actually, I need to do it beginning of August. But look, I'm insured. I do the bonding, even though I don't have to. I run a background check on myself every year. Okay. Credentials are very important to me. I explained to people, I said, look, if you needed to put an addition on your home, or we're going to remodel your kitchen or bathroom, you want to make sure your general contractor or the plumber they use or whoever, that they're insured, that they're licensed. Said, I'm coming into your home. I said, I have these credentials for your peace of mind. And again, that goes back to when I first started, my whole thing was quality care for the pets and peace of mind for the humans. You know what I mean? Like, and it's simple, but knowing who your ideal client is. And this comes back all the time. I mean, we've seen it at conferences. Now we're calling it the avatar, but it's still, who is your ideal client? My ideal client is someone that sees the value in the service I can offer, that respects me as a business owner, that realizes that this is just not about playing with dogs and cats all day long, or bunnies. That there are times that our jobs are very difficult in the situations where a pet gets sick in our care and how we respond to it. Or, sadly, I've had to take clients' pets to say goodbye when they were out of town. Not a fun thing to do. But I promised my clients their pet would not be alone. I've gone with clients when they had to say goodbye because they offered me the chance to say goodbye, and I was there for support for them. It's not always wagging tails and whisker kisses. You know that. It takes a long time for a butt cheek to grow back, after it's been chewed. But living here in Texas, having dealt with Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Harvey, the freeze we had where our power grid was not working properly, I became a shapeshifter. I mean, like with each little natural disaster, I had to rethink things. I had a very dear client with 2 dogs in crates on the lower level of his house during Harvey, and I couldn't get back to his house. And his house flooded. And without, again, having a plan, I was able to get a hold of them. They couldn't get back to Houston because of the storm. And we were able to get those dogs out of the house into safety. I couldn't do it. I almost ruined my car trying to get back there. and he lived like on the lake. So I knew he had canoes and kayaks at his house. I'm like, if I could just get back there, I could get the dogs out, because that's how high the water was. I mean, it was crazy.
Wow.
But fortunately, there was an airboat back there, and they had a neighbor that had an extra key. They were able to get the dogs out. I mean, I said, look, if they can get the dogs out, I'll even bring them to my house. I mean, again, extenuating circumstances, right? I mean, but it all worked out fine. But you know what? I use that story now at meet and greets about emergency contacts and saying, look, we've all lived through it. If you live here in Kingwood, you know what it was like with the flooding. You guys knew what it was like that February when everything froze. I like to think I can go into a phone booth and turn into super pet sitter and fly everywhere and, a George Jetson backpack or something. But,
yeah.
Sometimes this is why emergency contacts are so important. And, when I share these stories about having to, take pets to their final vet visit or flooding and I said, look, these things have happened. You learn very fast what to do and what not to do. And again, you just have to learn by your mistakes. And one of the biggest things, I guess, about coming back from a mistake is, I think the biggest mistake we all make is thinking we can do it all. And we can't. And if you think you can, you're lying. I'm sorry. I mean, I know it sounds like I've got a major chip on my shoulder, but post-COVID now, look, there were pre-COVID, I was doing by myself anywhere, including Monday through Friday middays. I was doing anywhere from probably 18 to 20, maybe 22 visits a day by myself.
Holy. Whoa.
That included, midday dog walk. I was blowing and going from the time I opened my eyes in the morning to the time I went to bed at night. And you know what? I was okay with it. And then COVID hit. And I got lazy. And lazier. And fatter. And, as things started to open up, I said, one, I can't do it anymore, but I don't want to do it anymore. Now, there have been some days that I have still done the 16 to 18. I call it the transition days, where one client comes home and another one starts that day. So you got an extra visit on each end, So like, am I going to turn down a week's job for, having an extra 2 visits that day? No, of course not. But, you learn. And you know what? I've gotten so good at saying no now. I would always say, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't apologize anymore. I just say no. I've had people say to me, well, that's disappointing. Are you available? No. Well, that's disappointing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've gotten, I think I told you, privately that, I'm scheduled to take a vacation the end of August, beginning of September, and I'm actually taking Labor Day weekend off. I had someone tell me, well, you can't take a holiday weekend off. And I said, why? This was a potential new client. I mean, any of my existing clients, I've shared with them what I'm doing, and they're like, have a good time, like you deserve it. And then other people are like, well, you're taking a holiday weekend off. Yes, I am. But you're a pet sitter. People travel on. I said, there's other pet sitters out there. He said, I'm sorry. I like, when people tell me how to run my business, you're not going to be a client. Like, I already checked out. Like, yep, next. But I am very sympathetic and empathetic to people. Look, I wish I could help everybody, but you can't. And any pet sitter that thinks they could be available 100% of the time for 100% of their clients, they're lying to themselves. You just can't. Now, a solo sitter, okay, a business with multiple sitters and staff, I would imagine you guys get to a point where you're fully booked too, that you have to turn people away.
Yeah, you'll never be big enough to care for absolutely everybody, and so if you think the solution to having to say no is just bringing on more staff, that's not the case. I know some of the biggest pet sitting companies in the world, they've got wait lists for months because it's just that's just the way it is. So no is a lesson that we have to learn, and we have to learn it earlier, sooner rather than later. But sometimes it takes some time for people like myself who are slow learners, but it is part of that process. And Scott, you've learned a lot over the last 17 years. But I did want to ask, what 2005 is when you said you started,
right?
What was it that brought you into the pet industry then?
Actually, it's a very interesting story. Before I moved to Houston, I lived in New Jersey, and my spouse worked for Bank of New York, and I worked for Citibank. So I was based out of New Jersey, but there were times that I did have to go down to the Wall Street area. And where we lived, we were very close to the New Jersey transit trains that took us to Hoboken. I don't know if you've ever been to Hoboken, New Jersey.
I have not.
But the infamous PATH trains were the PATH trains that literally went under the river and into New York.
Yeah.
Well, our train stop was the World Trade Center. So fast forward to 2001 when the World Trade Center's, 9/11. I was working for a mortgage company here in town. My business was my background was mortgage and stock transfer banking at that time, but I was working for a mortgage company, and sadly, the company that was the the reason for the big crisis with all the bad loans.
Oh, that one, that little one.
Yes, Countrywide. Anyway. I had a hard time after the towers went down. I knew people that got out. I knew people that didn't get out. My best friend, my next door neighbor, best friend growing up all through, elementary school and high school, he had worked down in that area, not in those buildings, but one or two over. And he was missing for a week, like wandering in the dust. Nobody knew if he was alive or not. And it was just really surreal for me. Like I was like, wow. And then, of course, not knowing what Countrywide was really about. I had only been there a few months. But then I was an inside loan officer. And what they wanted me to do then was to just go and get all the people that were currently in bad loans to get them into worse loans because the rates went down. And they're like, well, we could refinance you and you can get cash back. But, there were all the hidden costs and this and that. And basically every loan that closed, you would get money. It was just one of those deals where I just couldn't profit off of the backs of people that this company was trying to take advantage of. And, long story short, I did it for a couple of months. And by November, December, like I would go to bed at night and said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And one morning I woke up in a sweat, had a major panic anxiety attack, and said, I'm not going to work today. I called in sick, and one sick day became two and two. And I just had to take a break and ended up, being diagnosed with an anxiety. And then the anxiety makes you depressed because you feel like you're letting people down. And it went through that whole depression anxiety thing. So I took a little bit of a break. And during that break, in 2003, I literally took a 2-year sabbatical and just said, you know what? I was very fortunate that I was able to get some assistance through the government and qualified. I wasn't suicidal or any of that stuff. I was just in a really dark place. And, thank God I had a very supportive family and not a spouse now, but not at the time. But, I'm in a 39-year relationship. So, very supportive people and family and friends. And, people don't understand it, but they try to, And at the time, a neighbor found a dog and they were going away for a weekend, and they asked if we could come and feed it. And I said, well, why don't we just bring it to our house? And it was a little Dalmatian puppy. And that dog saved my life. She was the best. They couldn't find a home for her. They weren't going to keep her, but they just didn't want to abandon her for their trip. You know what I mean? So that was my first real pet sitting. And that dog literally saved my life. I was outside again walking. I was like, she was my reason for getting up in the morning and this is what we're going to do today. And of course, not very original, but I named her Domino because she was still young and all of her spots were coming in and she looked like a domino. So now here's a little helpful hint. Never name a dog with no on the end of their name. Generally, they only hear 2 syllables, so they don't hear the third no.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was my Domino. No. Yeah. But anyway, she led me to volunteer with rescue. I said, I need to give something back. And then I volunteered for an amazing rescue here locally. And through rescue was how my business started, because I started to do some pet sitting for the rescue. When people adopted through them and they needed to go out of town, they would call the rescue and say, hey, is there any way, maybe the foster could take the dog back while we're on vacation? And they'd be like, oh, no, because that foster already has another dog that they're fostering. And they said, but one of our volunteers does some pet sitting. And I did it for free because I was getting assistance from the government. And I didn't want to burn my bridges there. But it helped me make commitments and get things back on track and realize, if this was something I could do. And finally, the director of this rescue said, Scott, this is you. She said, stop making money for us and go make money for yourself. And that's kind of how this started. So Personal Touch Pet Sitting became like around 2004. I didn't know about Pet Sitters International. I didn't know about NAPS. I didn't know about any of this stuff. I started doing my research. And, to say I started as a hobby sitter, I mean, in many ways, don't we all? I mean, when you're just testing the waters, but before I really opened my doors legitimately, I was a member of PSI. I had insurance and bonding. I did all the right things. So July 1st, 2005 is my legitimate, business birthday. You know what I mean? So we just are entered into year 17. It was definitely a way of reinventing yourself. And I can't say that 9/11, it was the catalyst. But apparently there was some other things going on that I wasn't even aware of, but it triggered something, you know what I mean? And I've never looked back. I mean, I'm not going to say I've never had, COVID, I'm sure for any business owner in our industry, I don't care how big or how small, I'm sure we all thought we were done. I was fortunate through the government again to get the pandemic unemployment assistance. I didn't go the PPP route, but I was able to do what I needed to do as a self-employed person. And, so I was appreciative of that. But without that, I would have been done. I really thought about hanging out my leashes because I said, if this doesn't come back, I got to do something. But then again, I also thought about, you've been your own boss for how many years now?
Yeah.
I don't think I could go work for anybody. I would probably get fired day one for insubordination. I'm sorry, I would. I have no regrets. I still love what I do. And, the life is good brand.
Yeah.
Their thing is, what is it? Do what you like what you do. I mean, every day is not like I said, wagging tails and whisker kisses. But if just keeping things simple, to kind of recap, know who your ideal client is, know how you're going to screen or process a potential new client. So when you go to do the meet and greet, the onboarding is so easy. And again, I don't use pet sitting software. So when I go, I'm the one writing everything down. I'm taking the notes. It's not something they're putting in there. That also opens a dialogue while you're doing it. What you see it all the time too about they don't want to pay my cancellation fee, or they don't want to do this, or they don't want to do that. On my service agreement, contract, whatever you want to call it, at the meet and greet, when it comes to that time, I take the pen and draw a little line next to each one of my bullet points. And I said, I know we've talked about this, but can you please read these and initial? I just want to make sure you understand my policies, that hopefully we will never have to deal with it, but you need to understand that policies are in place to protect you and me. And then I make them sign the contract, and I even sign it as the representative of the business. I mean, contracts are great, but do they really hold up in a court of law? It's more of a good faith thing, And I mean, in a technology world, you can't even sign up for something to get a free brochure sent and enter your email address unless you accept their terms of service. It's crazy these days. So, to me, by them initialing and signing, they're accepting my terms of service. My business model is not for everyone. Again, customer service. If you go to my website, if you get one of my pens that I leave behind, one of my can covers, one of my keychains, a sticky notepad, any of my marketing things that I leave for clients or drop off at pet stores or vets or whatever, poop bag dispensers, whatever. It's got the name of my business and either my phone number or my website. Okay, that's customer service. You want to hear or learn about me? I mean, yesterday was a perfect example about someone not doing their research. The lady that I had to email and came back and then called. But if she contacted me where it says contact this, or if it could have been the PSI locator, I'm not sure. But if you were there already, nowhere in the description of the services I offer says overnight service. So if I didn't do that, why did you contact me? You know what I mean? Like again, it's another way of screening potential clients. And I that's another thing I do on the screening. If I know I'm all over the place, but have you been to my website? Have you read the services I offer? Have you seen our rates? Have you seen my policies and holiday fees? And have you seen all that? Because again, I'm not going to go to a meet and greet and have someone go, oh my God, we need 3 visits a day at $24 a visit. That's $72 a day. We're going to be gone for 10 days. We can't afford that. I make sure prices, cancellation policies, early return policies, payment policies are fully understood before I even set up a meet and greet. Because those are things that blow up at the table too.
Well, listening as you're talking, describing all this, Scott, it's the name of your business is Personal Touch Pet Sitting, and it really is personal to you, but you don't take it personally. And I think that's a very fine line that a lot of people have.
You can't. If I took, Colin, you know me well enough to think if I took everything personally, I would be back in bed in a fetal position like I was years ago. I'm kidding. Yeah. No, but you can't. And sometimes it's hard because people that know me locally, they know I'm the face of my business. And Scott is the business and the business is Scott, but there are times that Scott has to take that business hat off. And when I'm in public, I try to be the best representative of my business, but there's times that Scott has to be Scott. and it's hard to find that work-life balance. but I've done a much better job post lockdown, and because I've made a few tweaks about the number of sits I'm going to do and the number of jobs I'm going to take at one time. And yes, I need to be profitable, and I have been profitable since year one. May not have been a huge profit, but you know what? I found a thing that works for me. And, you know, I have clients that have been clients of mine actually since 2004, before I was legit, that are on their second sets of dogs now, or puppies.
You may think about how do I get to that point in our business, and hearing everything that you've talked about, Scott, it starts from that initial conversation.
Yes, it does.
And viewing the long-term relationship you're going to have with this person. How would you like to step off on an amazing foot? Treat them well, right? Provide answers, provide service to them in an exceptional way, and do it every time you come over. And that's where that builds. It's, loyalty or bond or almost friendship at times.
It's hard. Actually, this family with the Goldens, their mom had a battle with breast cancer. And when she was going through her chemo and radiation, and they still had me come daily to walk the girls, and I always knew Monday was chemo day. By Wednesday, she wasn't going to be feeling well. So I would always go and on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I'd say, hey, why don't you walk with us today? We'll go slow. And it's hard sometimes not to cross that line, but we have such an amazing relationship because of that. You know what I mean? It's very hard when you don't want to cross over that professional to personal. But I think in some way we do it and not even realize we do it. With our clients that I don't want to say that they're super special to us, but I think we've all been there when there's been an illness or something going on in the house, that you want to be more than just the person that, any little thing you can do to help, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're not,
but continuing with the consistency of the midday dog walks for the girls was my way of helping. But what else can I do while I'm here?
Yeah, Scott, I know you've said before when we've talked previously of I'm hired, but I'm not the hired help.
Yes,
right? This is so much more than that. And can we replicate that interaction we have with every single client? No, but you kind of know. Okay, this is a super special scenario right now where maybe I need to step into this. For us, we had a client who has mobility issues, and he fell out of his wheelchair, and he didn't panic about his dog because he knew every morning at 9 a.m. we show up.
You'd be there.
We're going to be there, and he knew we would be there. We've had clients, who have spouses that are dealing with cancer or all sorts of things, and they know we're going to be there for them. And you can go, hey, is there anything else I can do to help you while you're going through this tough time? Scott, as you've been sharing your stories and relaying kind of these experiences through this, it is making me reflect a lot about that. When we talk about it being personal, it is personal in that we take things seriously, we invest in them, but it is personal to us, and we are a person, right? As you said, it's just who we are. And part of this is accepting that and embracing that of I have these responsibilities that I do have to, maybe never find a perfect balance in doing, but I have to be able to dedicate energy and resources to them, and recognizing that's part of who I am is the things that I do and interact with in the world around me, whether that's pet sitting or parenting or whatever.
But what's funny, and I just think that, a lot of people get into our industry because I love pets, and they're maybe not such people, they're not a people person. But they forget that you've got to get through the human to get to the canine or the feline or the lizard or the reptile or the hedgehog or the horse or the cow or whatever type of animal you sit for. Yeah. They use software because they don't want to talk to people. That, everything, technology is great until it's not. No, I actually, trying to sign on here, I had an issue with my Outlook that I couldn't open the email you sent me with the link to the Zoom thing. So technology is great until it's not, firsthand. I don't rely on technology. I have an Excel calendar that I email to myself every time I update it. I use QuickBooks for my bookkeeping and invoicing. My payment structure is simple. Check, cash, or Zelle. No credit cards. I don't want to deal with it. Just simple. Less is more.
I really appreciate you encouraging us to go for the personal, keep it simple, and focus on those boundaries and build those relationships, because at the end of the day, that's what this is about, in building that trust. I know.
And again, part of my screening process, again, is I joke. I don't know if you've ever saw the play or the musical Chicago.
Yeah.
There's a song in there called Mr. Cellophane. I have become Mr. Cellophane. I am so transparent. I know what my deal breakers are and what they aren't. And I put it out there. And if you're not comfortable with it, that gives you the opportunity to say, well, you know what, Scott, I'm not comfortable with that. And a lot of it comes down to when you talk about a emergency contact or a backup, or I've referred to my spouse numerous times as my spouse, but I am in a 39-year relationship with a man. We're married legally in 2005, but without his support, I wouldn't be where I am right now with this business. And he, at many times, has been my go-to backup. So I ask people, look, are you okay? And I know it's a no-no, but I always say, listen, my schedule is so crazy that there are times that after I feed my dogs and cats and come home and respond to emails and voicemails and whatever, that we'll go grab a bite to eat or go run an errand together. I said, but are you okay if I bring my husband to your house to meet your dogs or cats? I said, only in a dire emergency would I ask him, but if I got stuck somewhere where your dogs needed to get out, would you be okay if I called him and said, hey, come and get the keys to the Jones? You need to go let, Lucy out, whatever. Are you on board with that? Are you comfortable? I said, but you need to let your nosy neighbors know. I mean, you know as well as I that men in our industry are a minority. And that's another thing we have to face. Every block has a Gladys Kravitz, the nosy neighbor. So I tell my clients all the time, please let your neighbors know that I drive this kind of car, that I'm coming multiple times a day. I've had the cops called on me. There's a strange man going into the Jones house, or I'm on a first name basis with a lot of the cops in Kingwood now, but alarms going off where they don't tell you they changed the code, and, whatever. But I put it all out there. And that's another way of me measuring. I mean, not to get political, but, there are some people that are just not on board with gay marriage. How I live my life doesn't affect how I do my job. And if you don't want a gay pet sitter, then I'm not the right person for you. I don't show up in a rainbow flag. I don't have fairy wings when I come, but again, some people are just not on board with that. And if you're not my ideal client. But most people go, wow, you've thought about that. You've thought about what happens if you can't get to our house. I said, you can give me 3 emergency contacts. It doesn't mean they're all going to be available when I need them to get to your house. My husband had to take me to the ER, but he had to take me to do my bedtime visits first before my appendix almost ruptured. Once the morphine kicked in, I was texting the client saying, hey, we got the pet sits covered. But, those are things you do. Those are things you do. Yeah. It is personal.
Scott, I really appreciate you taking time to talk with us today and share about that and share the personal touch that you do bring and why it is so personal to you in the end. I know that there's a lot more we can cover. This is probably just part 1 of 40
really?
that we but if people want to get in touch and pick your brain on stuff, especially on staying solo, being simple, setting those boundaries and embracing, who you are and what you bring to the table, how can they best do that?
They can email me or message me on Facebook. Some of the folks that, are in your groups might be in the other, pet sitting forums too. I'm an open book. What works for me may not work for someone else. But, I also think that whether you're big or small, have staff, don't have staff, getting back to the basics sometimes, is more important than the big stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we all want to grow our business by a certain percentage every year or do this or do that. But do you want to grow it by just taking on any client that comes along? The onesie, the one-time wonder when their pet sitter bailed or their neighbor's kid bailed on them 2 days before they were going to go on their trip. They're a one-time wonder, although they may not be. So, do you screen differently? No, because they may become a long-time client. But sometimes, I do it the same way every time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to lose the possibility. But, they could very well be a one-time wonder because you're bailing them out of a situation.
Yeah.
But the basic customer service and personal touch or whatever you want to call it, professionalism, the courtesy of you owe them that courtesy. Now, granted, every person may not be polite, but again, screening them. Hey, I remember I was at a meet and greet. It didn't work out, but this lady's phone kept ringing and she kept saying, "Can I call you back? The dog walker's here." And after the third or fourth call, I said, the dog walker has a name. That kind of cut our meet and greet really short. I said, "You're the one that told me you only had a limited amount of time. Can you maybe just not answer your phone so we can get through this? I'm a real estate agent and I've got houses to show." Well, then maybe we should have scheduled this for another time. I have places I need to be too, and I worked this into my schedule. We were not a good fit.
That's good stuff. Well, Scott, I appreciate you taking time to talk with me today and share.
Colin, anytime, seriously, anytime.
Keep things simple. It sounds so simple, but it really is, I believe, the key to both longevity and flourishing in an industry like ours. From everything from the prices that we have, the services that we offer, the onboarding process, and the way we communicate with our clients, and then everything in between. We get to walk through that and go with a fine-tooth comb through our entire business and make sure everything is exactly how we want it, and that it's simple, not just for our clients' sake. I think far more importantly, for our sake as well. So we can stay consistent whenever we are communicating with clients and that we can understand exactly how our business is operating. Complications lead to mental fatigue, emotional burnout, and all sorts of things in our lives and in our business. By stripping away all of the unnecessary facets and components of our business, maybe we added something because we used to offer it, or we see someone else offering, so we tack it on, or we decide that we want to change service areas. Whatever we do to complicate our business, we need to both be able to justify it and perform it reliably and predictably every single time. So what are you holding on into your business? What things do you need to let go of to simplify your life and how your services are rendered? Let us know. We'd love to hear. We want to thank our sponsor today, Time to Pet, and our amazing Patreon supporters who help make this show possible. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.